Welcome to the November 18th edition of the Index Sports Show. I'm Editor-in-Chief Brenna McDermott, and I have here with me Managing Editor Jack Nicholl and Assistant Sports Editor Tyler Killen. And tonight we're going to be doing a postseason preview for volleyball and wrapping up football season. Volleyball are in the number 3 seed, and they'll be playing Abilene Christian University today at noon. And also football ended its season versus University of Nebraska Omaha, and they fell 62-61. So Tyler, tell me, what's the volleyball team done to sort of get some momentum building into the postseason?
Well, going into this last weekend's games, they lost 4 of their last 7, so they've really been reeling. And apparently to get that momentum back, they had a mojo party.
What's a mojo party?
Well, yeah, I asked that, and I guess it involves decorating the locker room, because that's what the coaches decorated the locker room. And I don't know what festivities went on in the mojo party, but by golly, it worked, because they came out and took both games. They swept both games to end the season. Ended the season with 13 sweeps, so mojo is back, I guess, for the Bulldogs going into the tournament.
And Tyler, what's the scouting report on Abilene for Truman? What are they going to have to do to beat them?
Well, Abilene, they played them earlier this year. Truman played Abilene in the Washburn Lady Blues Fall Classic and beat them in 5 sets. Abilene is a strong team, especially in blocking. Their senior middle blocker, Shauna Hines, is second in the nation in blocks per set, and the team overall is 6th. So Bulldogs are really going to have to be creative to try to, or move the ball faster to try to get around some of those blocks from Abilene. But if the Bulldogs played like they did earlier this year, they could still easily beat Abilene.
I guess the good part about that is they have Megan Sharp, who's quick enough to run around the blocks, and she usually does a pretty good job of avoiding double blocks, and that's what helps her hit so high.
Yeah.
And if Truman can defeat Abilene, what's the scouting report for after that? I know the next game would be tomorrow at 5. What kind of teams would they possibly be facing?
Well, the 2-7 matchup is Washburn and Northwest. And Washburn is I'm sure favored. They're obviously the number 2 seed. They only have 2 losses all year. But one of them was first to the Bulldogs, but they also lost to Northwest. So Northwest maybe has their number. I still expect Washburn to win, and Washburn's a strong team, really all around, kind of built like the Bulldogs, not quite as power-heavy, more of a fast-paced team. Mm-hmm. So it would be a good matchup, and Bulldogs split with Washburn this year, each winning at home.
And Washburn's a team that probably even could have hosted the regionals instead of Central.
Yeah, that was another controversy. Central got the number 1 seed, even though they and Washburn had the same record, and Washburn had beaten them twice this year. So I know Coach Briney and most of the players were a little confused about why Central got the nod over Washburn. And I am too.
And Jack, what's going to be the key for Truman to be successful in region play?
Well, it's actually pretty simple, and it's something that Coach Briney pointed out. He's got a quote in this week's index. It's something I wrote a column about last week, and it's just playing solid for 3 straight matches. The team that just goes out there and plays well for 3 straight matches is the one that's going to win. But you can't falter at all. Truman has shown that they can beat every single team in the region, except for the exception of probably Central. Central swept them twice, but they've beaten every team at least once. And so we know that they can beat teams. They just have to go out there and do it, and maybe it's a factor of getting their mojo on or whatever, or keeping that up. But they can't have another slip up like they did a couple of weeks ago. They need to find it, and they need to find it for 3 straight matches.
Let's switch over to football now. The team finished 4-7 on the year, up from a 2-9 record a year ago. Jack, despite the loss on last week, how's the team feeling about their performance during the season overall?
Mm-hmm. Well, they're finishing 4-7. 2 of their losses, last 2 games, were very close. They probably could have beat Pitt State at Pitt State. They actually outgained them. And then this week, one offensive performance, both teams. UNO had the comeback in the last 4.5 minutes. So legitimately, maybe they could have had a winning record. But a big part is just all the strides they've made. And one of the biggest things they did this season was they really found out what they are good at. whether it be the running game, whether it be pressuring the quarterback, and they really found out what they are good at, and they stuck with those things. Even when maybe they didn't work a couple games, they didn't say, okay, now we're going to pass the ball 40 times a game. They stuck with what they were good at, and I think we can see that they made strides with that throughout the season, and especially offensively. Well, not necessarily defensively, but offensively, it all kind of came together in the last game of the season, putting up 61 points, highest scoring game in Truman history as far as both teams. Truman has scored in the 90s before by themselves.
Mm-hmm. And what kind of effect do you think Greg Nesbitt has had on the team in his first year as head coach?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, Nesbitt certainly has gotten a lot of compliments. I've talked to multiple opposing coaches throughout the season. I've talked to multiple players about the changes in philosophy, and all of them pretty much just go back to Greg Nesbitt and saying they got a coach in place who knows what he's doing. He's going to turn the program around, and especially on the defensive side, opposing coaches really said there is remarkable improvement. And Nesbitt knows that they're noticing that. He told me about that the other week. But it's just, I asked Donald Harvey after the game something about the strides this team has made this season, because they lost to UNO 38-0 last season, and he just talked about, well, we've got a head coach who knows what he's doing. All we have to do is what he says, and we're going to be successful. So it's not just me saying Nesbitt's good. It's opposing coaches and it's players on the team who believe in Nesbitt.
And I think it's important to note he's doing this without any of his recruits too. Wait till he gets his own players in.
Well, there were a few people this year who did not take red shirts. Maybe got in the recruiting process a little bit late, but I think he did have his recruiting class last year. Patrick Blackwell, I believe, is one of them on the defensive line. Maybe not Blackwell. I know there's one on the defensive line. So,
somebody was there.
Yeah, and then Derek Kuhn, kicker as well. So. But another recruiting season coming up, so I know this past year's was a little bit small compared to normal, so maybe now with Nesbitt there for the whole season, we'll see a bigger recruiting class and see even more people in the works next season.
Well, Jack, Tyler, thank you so much for joining us. And no sports show next week, so have a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you in a few weeks.